Hey, welcome to Taylor's Trick Taking Table. I'm Trick, and we are going to continue with Community on the channel. Before that, I do want to say, go Avs. I've said that on the channel before, but I hope they do well. They are facing off against the Oilers. Woo! Gonna be a good one. But back to trick taking. Last video, we talked about your favorite trick takers, and what a list! A lot of deep cuts that y'all had, and some super interesting ones that I hope to cover, like Tractor and such. But the winner of 535 is Kyle B. So thanks so much, Kyle. Reach out over whatever is easiest, like Twitter or Board Game Geek, so I can send this to you. Just there's like links in the link tree in the description to help get in touch with me. But yeah, congrats. The comments were really interesting though. Yeah, really fun. I think for this next game that we're going to give away, it's going to be Nana, which is an absolutely fantastic non-trick taking game, but it's it's one of those games that, although it's not trick taking, it kind of has that kind of pep to it that makes it feel a little bit like it's not really like a trick taking game at all. But my question to you is, what are games that feel kind of like trick taking games to you but aren't? So maybe games like Parade or something like that, where it has that kind of essence of trick taking, but it isn't the technical, by the books definition of a trick taker or a climber. So yeah, if you could, or if you wanted to win Nana, just put in the description like your favorite non-trick taking, non-climbing game that feels like a trick taker climber vibe, I guess. If that's not confusing, you do whatever. Put whatever you want down there. Put Tia to Walk. Why did I pick that game as a bet? Pick Whistle Mountain as your example. It's you. It's whatever you want. So it is the end of May here, and we're probably gonna push May a little bit long on the channel because we don't. What does a calendar know about how long months should go? So this is just the tip of the iceberg on Community. But since it is Community, our last video was covering in the community Big Cat Games, the amazing store that sells trick takers and has done a bunch for, I think, trick taking. So more trick taking stuff in the genre is designers in the trick taking community. And today we're covering 2 games designed by both trick taking fans in the community, which is great, and they're also coming to Kickstarter. So first things first, I guess, since they are in the community, check your bias. I got a grain of salt. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. But with that out of the way, the games we're covering are Court and Worst Enemy. So Court is by Christopher Boothner, I believe. I don't want to say that wrong. And then Worst Enemy is by J.L. Reed. So the hook to Court, I'll do Court first, is players will be playing to the trick, and then the winner of the trick will divvy up the cards in the trick to the other players. And what that means is the cards that players get are both their score, like the value of that card, the rank of that card is their score, and you don't want a high score, but it's also part of their hand for the next round. So it's interesting because you might want to give yourself a high card so it can win the next round. You can divvy up again, but it's also points. So it's got that push and pull. And the other game, Worst Enemy, is a cooperative game. Mostly, it's a cooperative game, but the theme is one player is the kind of mind of someone, and then the other players are kind of the wackiness of the mind, like the aggressive traits or the greedy traits or whatever it may be. And so they will kind of have a rule that dictates what they do, and they'll kind of mess up the trick for the main player. So the main player's trying to hit a bid, and technically everyone's trying to help them hit that bid, but the other players at the table have kind of like a quirky trait. And if you know me, I, especially since last month, kind of went ham on doing a bunch of different personalities, but I'm good with multiple personalities, so I think I could teach this game somewhat well. So let's go to the table, and I'll teach you how to play Worst Enemy, and then I'll give some thoughts on it, and then we'll go back to the table and I'll teach you how to play Court, and then we'll do some thoughts on that. So I'll put some timestamps in the video here. So jump around to your desire, to your pleasure? That sounds weird. But jump around, find the game you want to watch, or maybe you want to watch this rambling intro again. And I'll tell you that timestamp right now is 0:00. So yeah, if you want to watch this again, jump around. But yeah, anyway, yeah, so let's go to the table. Oh, before we go to the table, these are prototypes, and the real kind of final versions would be on their crowdfunding links, which I'll include in the description. All right, now let's go to the table. The deck in Worst Enemy is made up of numbers 1 through 5 in 5 suits, so that's 45 in total. Here we have the setup for the game. So you're going to be playing a cooperative game where players are going to be playing this kind of mind of this person. So some of the players are going to be aspects of the mind, so maybe like extreme behavior or compulsive behavior, and the other person is just going to be like the core personality, like the main person. So that main person is going to try to hit a bid, whether they think they're going to win all the tricks or none of the tricks, or most of the tricks or equal tricks, like the other person at the table, maybe they want to hit the same amount of tricks if that person wins, like whoever gets the most. And what's interesting is, after you shuffle the deck, you're going to take a random card. This is part of setup here. You're going to get the 3 traits that you have aligned. You're going to flip this. They'll have the same backs. Shuffle. You're going to deal them out to the players. Whoever gets the set aside player card is going to be the core personality. So they'll reveal it because they're about to make a bid on how many tricks they think they're going to win. Everyone else will just look at who they are and kind of keep it face down to themselves. There's behavior that will explain kind of what role each player has later, but it is meant to be kind of like a deductive thing, so you don't quite know who each player is. So how it works is, then you're going to get dealt your cards. Oof, I'm a bit out of practice here. I forgot to give all the players out. As you can see, I haven't done this in a while. But, so, you're going to deal out the cards. Everyone's going to get 9. And so, say this little ice cream cone, shouts out to Rand, is going to be the core personality. So this person is going to look at their hand, and also you're going to flip over the top card of the undealt cards, and that's going to be trump. So there's going to be blue is going to be trump. So you're going to look at your hand as the core personality. You're going to be like, how many tricks do I think I'm going to win? And you're going to make a bet. So since maybe this player doesn't have any blue, they think they're not going to win that many, you're going to take one of these markers here. Here it is, and you're going to place it on what do you think you're going to win. So maybe we think we're only going to win no tricks. Might be a little hard. Let's try it. So you think you're going to win no tricks. So after that happens, then the other players in order are going to say either just yes or no if they think they agree with your bid. So maybe this player has, let's look at their hands. They're looking at their hands, they're like, oh, I have some trump, but I have pretty low cards. I don't know if you're going to actually make it. They might just say no. This person maybe has a bunch of trump, they're like yes. This person has like a middle amount of trump, they think you could do it too, so they say yes. So then after you get whether people agree or not, you can kind of bid again, and then after you bid or no change your bid, that is like final. So maybe this player's like, I think I can still do it, even though that person said no. So they're going to keep it there. So the core personality is going to lead to the trick. And what's interesting is they have 10 of these playing cards, where everyone else has 9. So you'll just play 9 tricks. And so they are going to lead. Again, they don't want to win anything, so maybe they lead with a low green. So coming to Oddish here, it's a must-follow game, but you always have to follow your personality trait. So they wouldn't show this to the table. But so Oddish is compulsive. So you come over and you look at what compulsive does, and it says, when playing to the trick, you will always play your lowest ranked card. So Oddish, even though they could follow suit with one of these higher greens, they do have to follow their rule of playing one of their lowest ranked cards. If it's a tie, you can choose. Which is interesting about this choice is they could either win or, be trumping in, so they possibly can win, or they can just offsuit. So they'll play that. So this character here is like, maybe they are compulsive because they just played their lowest, but maybe they just didn't have a green and just played. So it's kind of like you're kind of trying to deduce what the players are as you play. So then it will come up to this player here, and they are extreme. So their thing is, if they won the previous trick, they'll try to win again. Otherwise, they're going to try to lose. So they're going to try to lose here because they didn't win the previous trick. But looking at their hand here, they're going to have to win no matter what. So maybe they see that this person doesn't want any tricks, so they'll play a low one now to try to win later. And finally, coming to the moon here, they are indecisive. So what indecisive is if you can play more than one card, you just pick 2 valid cards, play them face down, and then this core personality is going to pick one of them. Looking at their hand, they don't have any green, so they can play 2 of anything they want. So maybe they pick these 2 offsuit cards. They're going to play them face down. Core personalities maybe just picks that one. So that one gets revealed, and this goes back into their hand. So then you'd evaluate the trick, and whoever played the highest of the lead suit wins, unless there's trump, then it's highest trump. In this case, it would be this player over here. They'll collect the trick, and then they'll lead to the next trick. And again, since they're extreme, and since they just won that trick, they're going to try to win the next trick, at least, which is great, because this player is also trying to not win any tricks. So everyone has their own kind of weird goal or like thing they're doing, but everyone is in service of this bid. The whole point is to get this core personality player, the ice cream player, to hit this bid, because that's the only way the whole team gets points. What these are is like a communal pool, and so anyone can use this, any of these personalities. You can just remove one of these to ignore your trait. So maybe later on, this person really needs to win a trick to not let this person take no tricks, but they have to play their lowest ranked card. They could discard this light bulb from this kind of pool here to be able to play whatever card they wanted. So then at the end, you see if you hit your bid. If you miss your bid, the worst enemy tracker is going to start coming down. If you make your bid, you're going to get a certain amount of points, and that's going to come down here. And the whole goal is you just want the core personality to reach the end before the worst enemy. And so, yeah, if the worst enemy hits first, lose. If the core personality hits the end first, the whole team wins. So that is worst enemy, and again, take this with a huge grain of salt because the designer is in the community, and I also would say take it with a grain of salt because I didn't quite play the full game, you know? I didn't play with all of the roles or kind of different personalities that can be played with. I didn't play with the fact that the core personality, it could be not blank, you know? They could have a special thing on their own. I just played with the blank core personality. So, haven't played the full game. And I would say I didn't even play with, you know, full components. So again, this isn't the best, maybe full review, but this is like initial thoughts. I liked the concept of players have almost impediments or like weird behaviors that they have to follow, but everyone's still trying to hit this like bidding goal. It was nice to, when you're playing as the core personality, to try to deduce what people had as their role. Some of them were obvious, like a bit too obvious, and I am excited to see what other personalities are out there that might be a little bit more subtle. Like one of them was like, if you're this personality, play 2 cards face down, and then that was the only one who did that, so when that happened I was like, oh, okay, you're that personality. So I would like it where there could be cool combinations where the deduction element would be more interesting. And again, I haven't played with the full copy, so I don't know if that is going to be true or not. But the aspect of trying to hit a bid as a group is really cool. I think the fact that players try to make a bid and they have like that pool of tokens to help facilitate that. It's almost like in a crew deep sea where there's missions where people can give hints to each other, but it's from a collected pool. So everyone can use the hint, but they're using everyone's hints. I really, really like that concept. I love the idea of a group resource that's kind of dwindling and you almost have to be selfish in a way to use it because someone else might need it more than you later. I like the bidding aspect. I do think some of the bidding is a little too minutia. So I like the idea that it's no tricks or all tricks or equal tricks to whoever took the most other than you. I do think getting 3 over the person who took more than you, or 2 or 1, or 1 under or 1 or 2 under or 3 under, it's a little bit too much detail, and I would get my hand as the core personality and be like, I don't know if I could make, like just looking at my hand, I don't know if I could make that decision as someone who plays, you know, a lot of trick digging games, if I could differentiate between, you know, 3 over or 2 over. So some of it was almost like a little too much choice for me. It would be cool to have a little bit more streamlined, and especially when you make your bid and everyone goes, you know, yes or no if they think you're going to hit it. I think that might be more interesting with different personalities down the line, but it felt like, especially when I was one of those personalities who wasn't the core personality, I didn't really know, looking at just my hand, whether that was the best bid or not. And again, this is tough because I play with people who have played a lot of trick-taking games, so they are good at bidding, and so I kind of just trusted them. You know, maybe if you're playing this game with someone who might make a bad bid and you're like, maybe no. So I get why the mechanism's in there, but it felt like a lot of the time when we were playing, we were good enough to be like, so we kind of like, we're just like, maybe we'll skip that because it was like, we trust you, you know, a little bit. But I think overall, the personalities that I saw were interesting. The fact that someone has to play lowest, and they all felt thematic. the fact that someone has to play, indecisive, they play 2 face down. Like, it's like, I don't know what to play. So it was cool to have like those thematic personalities, or extreme, where they don't want to win and then they do want to win. They like, after they've won one, they just want to win everything. So I think there's some really cool gameplay and theme moments to the game that I hope get more explored in the full version. So I'm excited to see the full version, like, overall. So initial thoughts, I think the premise is really cool. I like a good amount of the gameplay. I do think the scoring's a little minutia. It would be cool to just, everyone plays the core personality once and see if you can, win 3 of the 4 or something, depending on the player count. But overall, I think the gameplay itself, once you get into it, is neat. I like that. There's just some edges around it that, might be smooth by the time this gets to whatever crowdfunding it's going on. Maybe Kickstarter, I believe. But by the time the full version comes out, maybe some of those edges might be smooth. But overall, some really cool twists on, I think, cooperative trick-taking, which is a field, like, a lot of people are exploring trick-taking through cooperative trick-taking with the crew, or Fox and the Force Duet. So it's cool to see a twist on that has almost like a hidden traitor in a way. Not really, but like people who are trying to work with you, they're trying their hardest, but they got these little impediments in the way that are throwing multiple wrenches into the group's plans. But yeah, so that is Worst Enemy, and check it out to see the full kind of version, and I hope it looks great. Thanks so much for watching. The deck in court is 3 suits, numbered 1 through 10. Here we have a game of court set up with super prototype components. For sure, these are trash tokens, pretty much, from a different game. But, so, everyone is going to get dealt 10 cards. So the deck's going to be dealt equally at 3, which is what we have set up here. And then each player is going to get a random character card. And these are kind of just like super powered, really nice cards. So there's going to be 11 tricks in the game. And then the final part of setup is these kind of objectives here, which I'll explain them in a little bit. You're just going to shuffle and have kind of a pile of them, and 2 of them are going to be out at a certain point. These are going to be crowns in the actual game, and you want these because they'll lower your score. Every time you win a trick, you'll get one of them, and you want the lowest score in the game. Jumping into the first trick here, it's a must-follow game, except anyone can play their character card, the special card that they were dealt, at any time they want if they don't want to follow suit, and it has kind of a power on it. But for now, let's just show a good kind of classic example. So it was led with the red, so it is must follow. So let's say all these players here don't use their character card and just follow suit. The highest card in the lead suit wins the trick. So it would be this 8 red. There's no trump. So the winner would take a crown. These are good for later. But the loser, they get to activate the power on their card, if there is a power. So there's 1, it says here, you get to switch a card from your hand with 1 in your court. Sadly, there's no card in this person's court, which I'll explain now, because the winner of the trick gets to separate the cards into the courts of the other player. So each player is going to get a card, and this has kind of 2 impacts. 1, it's going to be part of your hand for next round, and 2, it's going to be your score for this round. So maybe it's a little confusing, but let's get into an example here. So maybe this player takes the 2, gives that person an 8, and that person a 1. So since they won the trick, they're going to lead again, to the trick. So again, the winner would take a crown, and then they get to see if the lowest person played a power. This doesn't have a power, so nothing would trigger. And then this person gets to divvy it up. So again, maybe they want to give that person that so that they can have a super high card for next round, right? But they're giving themselves a ton of points for now, and you don't want points. And so that person would get that. And again, so let's say if that red trick was actually played now, the 1 power after the person got the crown would go off, and you can swap a card from your hand with 1 in your court. So maybe then they could swap that 3 with that 10. So now they have a 10 in their hand for this round, but they're only scoring 3 points, which is good because you want the lowest amount of points. So if this player won this trick, maybe they want to give themselves the 8 for later, and then this player gets 2 and that player gets 1. They'll lead the trick. What's interesting is these kind of objective cards. If at any point during the game, if a player satisfies the objective, they'll take it immediately. Let's say in the 3rd trick, this player plays this 4. So the player over here could follow suit if they wanted to, or they could play one of their character cards. And so the character card, again, can play at any time. It beats all the other ones. And what's interesting is it also has a power. So you trigger the power as well. And this power specifically if I could get it to focus, is the next trick is scored in reverse. So, you know, the classic low beats high. So this player over here, they could also play their character card if they wanted to. But let's say they just play that 7 for simplicity. So this person would win. They'll get a crown. The lowest would power. There's no power there though. So then when this person's deciding who gets what cards, you can never give yourself a character card. It's kind of like a balancing, so you just don't keep getting all the powerful cards. So you would have to divvy that up to someone. So maybe they do this, get some low points, and do that. And as you can see, this person now has one of the characters in their court, so they're halfway to fulfilling this goal. So what these goals are, is it's ways to lose points at the very end of the game, but you get them immediately. So like, let's say in a future trick, this person played their queen, right? And this person followed suit. And it got divvied up because this person, right? That person would have won. There's no power. This person could, I don't know why they'd do that because that's pretty good. Give that person that. This person would win this and it would count at the very end of the game for points for them. And this doesn't refill right away. It refills at the start of a round. You'll play a certain number of rounds in the game. Fast forwarding to the end of a round here. So players would count up the total value of the cards in their court. So, you know, 10, 10, 8, right? They count them all up. And then you minus 2 points for every crown that you have. And then that would be your point total going into the next round. If this was the last round, you would lose any number of points for all the objectives that you might have collected in the game. And then whoever has the lowest score wins. So that is court. And again, take this with a huge, huge grain of salt. Because the designer is in the community. And also this is Kickstarter preview, so I don't actually know. I don't even have all the components to the game. These are just I popped these out of like a board game tables game, you know. But so I actually genuinely like this game. There's some really, really cool concepts in here. The fact that you are, you know, if you win the trick, you're divvying up the cards for both points and the next hand. Really, really cool. Like, really love that concept. I would say it gives a ton of decision space, and it lets players really like control the narrative of each hand. The con of this, if this is a group, if this is a config group, is there's a lot of analysis paralysis that can get into that decision because you're choosing for the table, you know, everyone at the table, who gets what card, and so there's almost like a lot of like who's winning. Okay, what do they have in their court right now? I kind of want to balance that a little bit. Oh, but that person already has a power card or face card, you know. Maybe I'll do this. So there's a lot of that thinking. And then that person who does that has to then lead to the next trick. So there's a lot of kind of weight at the end of a trick on that person, or kind of time on that person. Which, you know, we didn't find it to be too bad, but there were moments where it was like, oof, you know, there's a lot of choice and there's a lot of that to it. And it almost scaled at the player count, right? So like in a 5-player game of this, it was like, whoa, you're you're picking a lot. So I would almost recommend this more at 3 or 4. Maybe that was my sweet spot personally, because it lowered on that AP. Especially at 3, you're just like, okay, there's only like 3 choices kind of to make. And it was nice when some of the choices were just like, oh, this person gets 6 or 8 points. Like it didn't quite matter too much, so the choices were a little easier. I'd recommend this at 3 or 4 for the player count. But what's interesting is at 3, you deal out all the cards, so it's perfect information. Or even actually, you know, at 4, once you play, it's still perfect information after the first hand. And it's a very trackable game. It's a very, because everything's open, right? You're literally seeing someone else's hand. You can really get into the details and counting cards and the memory aspect of it all. Because you are just hyper-focused on, oh my gosh, this person has, you know, a 10 and a 9 and an 8 and these colors. So there's a lot to think about in this game. It's a very thoughtful, very thinky, I guess could be potentially analysis paralysis prone game. But at the same time, the powers are a little take that-y. There's like swapping cards with courts. There's stealing someone's crowns. There's making someone discard a crown. What's nice is those are the worst take that, the harsher take that is on the cards that are a little harder to trigger, like the 9s. But it's an interesting kind of Venn diagram of a perfect information, very thoughtful game in like take that sometimes. So I think your group has to be an interesting group where because I know a lot of people don't like take that, especially in their trick taking games. Especially if like you win a trick, you get a crown, and then it just gets taken from you or discarded or something. There's something to be said for trick taking games where there is interaction. Obviously, you're playing tricks against the players, but there's never too much like take that interaction. So this game has some of that. It's not like too overt. There are just like powers that do it. But I guess what I'm getting at is it has some take that, but also it's very thinky. So those are kind of things to consider in this game. I think part of the thinky thing is that it's good. Like I know I say thinky or analysis paralysis, and it might have a negative connotation, but some really interesting things to that is like when you're a cool thinky moment, I guess is what I'm getting at, is like when you're dividing up the cards, or you can make it so you are short suited in certain suits. So once you start winning, you can like keep winning with those cards, right? So there's really interesting kind of like building your next hand moments. And it's funny when in the last round, you don't have to worry about building your hand for next round. You're just trying to get as few points as possible. So it's cool because the game has like a funny arc where it's like, oh, maybe I will take this card because it's pretty good for next round. And the next time it's just like, I do not want this card at all. I don't want 10 points. You crazy? So the game has like a cool flow and a cool arc to it. One thing to be aware of is the scoring can get a little mathy at 3 when you have, a little bit more cards at your court than maybe 4. You have a fair amount to like add, and the crowns don't negate too much. They'll maybe negate a card or two. So you're sitting there and you're counting up a little bit. It's not the worst, you'll count up to like 40, 50 or so maybe. But just like be known that there's a bit of math in this game, which I didn't mind too much. Give me that calculator, I don't mind it, but just again, to be known. One of my favorite parts is these kind of objectives that players are going for. I think what a lot of them do is they help make what you want in your court a little bit more interesting. A lot of times, some players are just like, oh, I'd want less points, or I want a better card for next round, so I'll take that one, right? But it's really fun when one of these are out there, like this one says, have 5 cards of one suit in your court. So there's like a fun tension where players are trying to get those certain suits, and you see over there someone has 4, and you have 4, and there's like a race to get, that last trick and take that one card. Maybe it's 10, you don't really want those points, but that'll give you a good card for next time, and that -5 at the end. And I didn't know how much they were going to play a role into the scoring, especially because, a 10 card is 10 points, so like it's 5 points that much, especially at the very end. But they do. The game is maybe it's just how we play it, but the game is surprisingly balanced. Because, it makes sense, right? Players are divvying up the cards and they're like, okay, calculating, that person has a ton of points already, maybe I'll give them the lowest one, and the person who doesn't have that many points, I'll give them the highest one. So again, it gets into a little bit of like the analysis paralysis of it, or the thinkiness of this game. But also like, it's a very balanced game because it's very player driven. The scoring is very player driven, which was great. I personally liked a lot of that. So if the thinking of it all and the spreading of it all is something you're concerned about, it's a part of this game for sure. But if you don't mind that, and this game can kind of lean into that, then like I don't mind it and I liked it, then you're gonna like this game, I think. So that's Court. Definitely check it out. I think the fact that you are balancing taking points versus having a great card for next hand is just absolutely fascinating. The Court dynamic of the achievements makes putting stuff in your court interesting. I think some of the take that wasn't too bad for our group. I think maybe one person wasn't the biggest fan of it, but the fact that the powers have like some really fun manipulation, like you could have a 10 in your court and then you play the power that lets you swap that 10 for like a 2, and now you have the 10 back in your hand. There's some cool maneuvers that you can do. So I think overall, a lot of cool, fun movements, but just some things to be aware of if you're hoping to back this. But definitely check us out. Bye.